it's not entry level IT. Like keep in mind that cybersecurity, I kind of think of it like an onion. So like the whole onion is IT, right? And then as you get deeper into the layers, like a layer in from the onion, let's say it's networking, a layer deeper than that, let's say it's cloud, and then at the very core center, these super niche programming and cybersecurity being included. And the reason I think of it like that is because this is like at the epicenter of the onion. I'm the man. I'm all this hot stuff, but it's like in reality, some people, not everybody's going to make it, and some people do sink. Some
Yeah.
people do snap. Some people do break. Lots of people do fail.
What is up, my guy? How you doing, bro?
How's it going, Day?
Pretty
Happy to
good,
be here,
man.
man.
Bro, super excited to actually have you on. I know we talked about this last year. Every single podcast at this point is like something I always talk about like months before, and I just like never have the time until like, this was kind of even just like so, I don't want to say random, but like I just said, bro, let's do this thing. And, thanks for making yourself available.
Thank you for asking. Thank you for inviting me. I mean, it's cool, man. I get it. We all have lives, so it gets difficult with the scheduling and whatnot.
Yeah, most definitely. But let's get started with just like a high level review of yourself. Who are you and what do you do?
Yeah. So I'm a United States Marine Corps veteran, started in IT, and I am currently a cybersecurity analyst in the banking industry.
Gotcha, gotcha. So let's start from where you actually came from, which is the U.S. Marine Corps. Why exactly was that your starting point? What was it that led you into the Marine Corps?
Oh man. So kind of goes back to like family life, parents split, divorced when I was like 10. You see your one parent struggling financially and whatnot. And basically that experience kind of pressured me to help out with my mom financially at a earlier age. At that point, I was then 20 and still really kind of like wavering around with what I was going to do, what I want to do. And because I saw my sister, who was a year older than me, she already joined the army. That kind of gave me the confidence and the inspiration to join the Marine Corps, and really was financially driven. It was like, hey, I want to get the heck out of the house. Hey, I want to make my own money and just kind of be independent. So that was that. My time in the Marine Corps, I was a paralegal, 4421 legal services specialist. So as we get to further questions, that detail is going to be pretty important. Things of like attention to detail, professional typing, writing, speaking to different audiences, things of that nature. But yeah, so that was the starting point for the Marine Corps. As I got out back in 2018, now again more wavering. It's like, what do I do for income now? For a short period of time, I was a HVAC technician slash apprentice. Yes, I'm sweating in like 130-degree attics. I
Mhm.
am cold and freezing in the winter outside with the outdoor unit. But it was great times, man, because like that appreciation and that gratitude for like having worked so much harder while
Mhm.
making much less money, and also the conditions. It's like I can't complain at all since
Yeah.
coming over into IT and cyber. Like dude, I work on my laptop, my computer, and I'm like in air conditioned settings all the time. So like I can't complain. So
Yeah.
that was 2018, doing HVAC for about 3 years. And it wasn't until like July of 2022 that I was like, hey, I'm going to do a career pivot. Looking at my sister being in IT and transition to cyber, whole time I was like, hey, I'm going to do this IT cyber stuff. I researched a crap ton. I watched a lot of your YouTube channel, man, and a lot of others as well about, just different recommendations and different paths. Like, dude, you don't know what you don't know. Like, I didn't know what a
Mhm.
network engineer, I didn't even know they existed. I didn't know what a cloud engineer was. I didn't know what all these different cyber security things were, but I saw my sister have a healthy career path from IT into cyber. And I was like, if she can do it, why can't I? But that July 22nd / August timeframe was when I committed to getting the CompTIA A+, got that hardcore studying. I'm unemployed at that time, right? So it was like,
Mhm.
I had all the time in the world. I banged the A+ out in like 3 weeks, which is, I'm telling you guys, that's a lot, but that's like, again, kind of that appreciation and gratitude for doing things that were more difficult and crappy. So this
Yeah.
is like so grateful to be able to like just sit home and study.
Yeah.
A week later, of course, got this CompTIA A+, did a whole bunch of research for resume writing. I haven't written a resume since ever. Like it's
Yeah.
been such a long time. So got the resume together, applied. About a week later, I got my first IT support role, and now we are here. Now we are
Man, man,
here.
yeah. Thanks for going into that. And I think there's different aspects of your story that have, anecdotes that we can go of. I think the first thing that I wanted to kind of like hone in on is like, well, first, I think it was wonderful that you had someone that you could look up to or look at as like, a model, like, oh, someone that very close to you had a very typical pathway into cybersecurity from IT. And then you kind of took that. So on that specifically, I want to ask, like, well, maybe this might be your sister's like pathway, but also yours. Why didn't you like there's some typical things where people try to go directly into cybersecurity, right? Why didn't you try to attempt to go direct to cybersecurity? Why did you decide that you were going to do this IT thing first and foremost, and then use that as a transition into cybersecurity, similar to your sister?
So a lot of the influence I got off of that was based on the research that I did. So of course, different people are going to be exposed to different pieces of advice and mentors and coaches and gurus and etc. But so about 80% of it was based off of the advice I was given, was that this is kind of the safer, more guaranteed, higher probability, and it just made more sense to get your foot in the door with some IT and then transition over. Another percentage, well, I'd say that was move that down from 80 to 60, because another large portion was about 20%. It was just financial. I was
Mm,
unemployed. And the last 20% was kind of, relay this back to the original 60 of like how you get so much conflicting advice that like, oh, entry cybersecurity. Oh, cyber's not entry. After having learned and upskilled myself so much, I'm going to thoroughly agree that it's not entry level IT. Like keep in mind that cybersecurity, I kind of think of it like an onion. So like the whole onion is IT, right? And then, as you get deeper into the layers, like a layer in from the onion, let's say it's networking, a layer deeper than that, let's say it's cloud. And then at the very core center, these super niche programming and cybersecurity being included. And the reason I think of it like that is because this is like at the epicenter of the onion, meaning hopefully, ideally, you should have some graphs or graduation of those outer layers so that you can, this is speaking in most, best practice, ideal, most optimized. I'm not saying
mhm,
you can't jump directly to it, but if you are going to choose that path to understand that number one, the probability and odds are very low and against you. Number two, it's an incredibly, as if IT in general already isn't an uphill battle, you're picking an extremely almost needle in the haystack uphill battle. I'm
mm.
not trying to make it sound destitute. Like again, people have done it, but can you do it is the question. So
Yeah.
yeah, I could point to this person, I could point to that person, I could point to that person, but is that going to be relevant and possible for me in my situation? And listen, like I tried to jump straight in. It's not like I didn't try,
Mhm,
but getting into IT was number one, a lower barrier to entry. It was quicker, it was easier, there was less to learn. I got in, again, big financial incentive because I was unemployed. I needed to start making money. And how the heck was I going to continue to afford to upskill and get more certifications if I wasn't working?
mhm,
So it just made so much logistical sense from the financial standpoint, from the start getting the foundational IT systems, servers, emails, all the basic IT system fundamentals, level two help desk support, junior sysadmin level skills. Like I'm not saying you have to be a super senior sysadmin, but it really does help you having a basic level one, level two help desk knowledge and skill set, because then so much of the IT terminology just makes so much more sense. So many things, I'm grasping so many more things. Oh, you say a Linux server here. Oh, you say a DMZ. You say my email server. Like these things are actually conceptually making sense to me. Versus, and I, at that point, I'd only let me back up. Like when I got the A plus, you think and feel like you overcame this glorious mountain. It's like, oh my God, I'm ready to work. Dude, I
yeah,
didn't know nothing from nothing. Okay, I got
mhm,
the A plus, but if you ask me what the heck is Active Directory, how do I install what's the point of Active Directory? What's the difference between a work group and a domain? Guys, by the way, those questions, they're very important questions. If you don't understand them, you're in trouble. You're in big trouble. If you get a help desk interview, they're going to ask you that most likely. And if you're already working in network and cloud cyber and you don't know those questions, you're missing foundational knowledge. So now that I'm in cyber, I mean, I'm just so blessed and grateful for having gone this route. So
yeah,
that was a crazy in-depth cobweb answer to your question of like why I did that first. A
yeah,
portion of it was easier, it was quicker. I needed the money, but I'm also grateful for all of it because all of the conceptual knowledge I was getting, I followed a heavy CompTIA path similar to you in the beginning. I was able to, from just books and videos and concepts, to actually, oh, this is how it actually works. This is how it actually functions. Now I'm actually getting hands-on skills because I'm actually doing things. I'm actually helping users reset their passwords, solve their issues. Oh, I have my monitor connected to my docking station, but it's not
yeah,
displaying. And really practicing and embodying, troubleshooting mindset, which this is great that I say that, the troubleshooting mindset, because it goes hand in hand with the incident response, triage, investigation mindset. Like, for example,
yeah,
when a user says, my monitors aren't popping up, do you just go crazy high level, like, oh, maybe it's the electric circuit boards in the monitor? Dude, freaking relax. Is it turned on? Did they
mhm,
plug it in all the way? Like, super basic at the lowest level. And then as we go up, no different than for any of you guys that might, already be or about approaching entry level cybersecurity analyst, any type of like technical cyber role. These alerts, it's not like, okay, all this security plus, CYSA plus, and all these try hack me stuff. They teach you all these, oh, SQL injection and malicious and blah 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 blah, all these alerts. It's like, take a breather, calm down, investigate it. Is this actually even a true alert that it might be compromised, or is this just a benign alert? So that troubleshooting mindset is very similar to the investigative theory and mindset and philosophy. So I'm just overall so grateful, and there was a lot of logistics behind. I really did kind of need it to join IT first.
Yeah. I think 2 things I wanna pull from there is, like, 1, just humanizing the decision the career decision, in regards to, like, financial needs, right? I think it's very easy for us to kinda, like, go all passion and motivation and this and that, and kinda, like, be like, just completely a lot of times we completely remove the actual human aspect of
Mhm.
things where people actually need a livelihood for them to, actually work and make a living for themselves and their families. I love
Right.
the fact that you keep humanizing that aspect of things in regards to, like, actually being driven by financial needs, right? I personally I had a very similar experience myself. I was around COVID and I got fired from my factory job and I needed a new job. I needed to get something. And quite frankly wasn't even looking for cybersecurity jobs. I was looking for cybersecurity. I wasn't even looking for cybersecurity internships. I was looking for help desk jobs. And I went the exact same route because I was like, I don't think I'm going to be qualified enough for a cybersecurity job. Like, right. I mean, I'm in college for cybersecurity. I'm a freshman, but I don't think I'm going to be right out of the bat qualified for cybersecurity jobs. So that's why I went the IT route. I got a couple of interviews for like some help desk or IT based roles, never got the jobs, but I was, very fortunate to have one of my interviews to be a cybersecurity internship interview, which is what got me my foot in the door. But that's not to say like everyone's going to have a similar opportunity, right? Like I had the opportunity because the company was local to Dallas and they were hiring for cybersecurity interns. So that was a very, good match for me and my experience, my area, and what I was looking to do. But not everyone's always going to have the same opportunity. So I love that variance and flexibility and options in the sense of I can get started in IT first, build those foundational things, foundational knowledge. I talked about troubleshooting, like it's extremely important. I talk about this all the time in regards to like how I've seen my troubleshooting skills just like get better and better over time because a lot of what we do is like I can call it I can term it security troubleshooting because in IT when you're troubleshooting you're looking for the root cause of an issue. When you're investigating an alert, when you're investigating or responding to a security incident, you're kind of troubleshooting as well. You're trying to get to the root cause of what happened and then trace back the steps of an attacker or a malicious individual from the root cause and then discover all the things that they did. So I do think that it might not necessarily be that you're troubleshooting security cases in this case as an IT professional or an help desk professional, but you're getting those skills where you're trying to get down to the root cause of an issue and then from there figure out a solution to that problem. And I think that that's an important aspect of things that some people typically don't want to do before they get into security. And I know like a lot of times there's also a gatekeeping aspect of it where people are like, you need to do IT before you do security. I can see the perspective as to where they're saying you need to, but I don't necessarily think that it's a need to thing. I think it's a if you have the opportunity to, and if that's your option, definitely go that route. However, I do think like sometimes some entry level security opportunities are available, but there's a caveat to that. And I want to share my experience in regards to that in order to like corroborate, like have a middle ground. Typically, when your first job, like myself, like is a security job, you're gonna have a lot of upskilling to do. It's gonna be a sink or swim, right? If you're not able to kind of like, learn things fast and like, like you said, like, you're talking about like a work group or like, an Active Directory domain. If you only know like all this like SQL injection stuff or all of this, other things without actually having the knowledge of like, systems behind that, systems that allow for access for, configuring endpoints, for configuring identity and access management. If you don't understand those things, right, you're going to have to speedily learn those things on the job while you're doing security because you didn't have that background IT or networking experience, or let's even say in the cloud. Like it's very unlikely you get your first job as a cloud security engineer, whatever the case. But if you happen to do, you're going to have to very quickly learn how these cloud systems work and all those things. So I think the underlying thing is, of course, if you have the opportunity to work in help desk, like, or work in a support role or a more entry level role, definitely do that because it helps you build those skills, like you said. However, if you do get into security as like your first job, it's extremely important that you have that tenacity and that drive to really go upskill fast as you're learning and building building those security skills, because if you don't, you're going to get left out really fast.
You said a lot of good things. So to backtrack, when you mentioned about the humanizing of the finances, like that is always going to be like glooming on my mind as I try to advise people with just maneuvering IT careers in general. It doesn't have to be cyber, but in general, because like it's like, oh, do this, oh, do this, oh, do, and it's like you just listed like 3, 4, 5, 6 certs. Where's this money coming from? Where's this time, energy, money
Mhm.
coming from? So I always like overlay and think about my recommendation of like logistically where are these resources coming from, because it had
Yeah.
to come from somewhere. By the way, guys, my sister financially helped me a lot paying for a lot of these certifications initially. So, keeping expenses low, saving my paycheck aside, but then she also assisted me as well. Dude, I mean, like failing one time and having to take a retake or purchase a retake, it like killed me. Like I want to literally ball up and cry, just tears of failure and guilt, because it's like
Yeah.
I'm already not making a lot of money. I need money to pay bills and et cetera, et cetera. And now I'm failing. Now I'm pushing back my timeline further of when I could potentially write my resume, land an interview, land my first
Yeah.
job offer. So like pressure was freaking there. And then you
Yeah.
mentioned the whole sink or swim mentality. And it's just like different people handle discipline, pressure, stress to varying degrees. So
Mm.
like everybody likes to be rah rah woo woo, like I'm the man, I'm all this hot stuff. But it's like in reality, some people not everybody's gonna make it, and some people do sink, some
Yeah.
people do snap, some people do break, lots of people do fail. And you don't have to feel bad or guilty like if that's you, but as long as you're mentally I always come at from discipline and
Yeah.
goal oriented and focus on that. Now, I don't like the whole motivation because it's so like short term. It gets you started, but it's so short term. A lot of my motivation, discipline, work ethic comes from bodybuilding, working out, Marine Corps, etc. So I like to kind of think of myself and turn myself, I mean, objectively, not to say this braggadociously, but objectively, what I've done with all these certifications in the period of time that I've done it, it is above average, and very few people have done what I've done. Again, I'm not saying that any type of arrogant way, but it's like the pace and everything that I moved is definitely extremely above average, and I'd say the same for you, Day. So that was on the sink or swim. And then I also want to circle back on the stuff that you said about the whole internship, and there is an aspect of luck, right place, right time, right location, knowing the right people. There definitely is. There's a lot of features, there's a lot of factors that are just out of our control, and really all you can do is maximize and try to optimize the most you can do. Because you mentioned how you had the opportunity for the cybersecurity internship. Guys, personally, I got turned down for internships. I had
Mm.
8 certifications at the time. I was already working in IT support for 6 months at the time. I got turned down for internships. And
Mm.
then a month later, I was interviewing for my cybersecurity analyst role, and I actually got a role. And it was just like, so that's kind of like the different realities of how like the contrast in my story and Day's story of like, I didn't have access to an entry cyber role or an entry cyber in all of and I was applying. I optimized my resume. Like I was applying, I was trying, I was networking. My LinkedIn was there. My professional profile was there. I was DMing the recruiters. I mean, I was doing it, and I was getting whole bunches of pushback of like, oh, you don't have enough IT experience. Oh, you don't have this. Oh, you don't have that. So this kind of like slowly trickles and permeates your thought process and your strategy and almost your psychology, because I'm getting different feedback than what Day got. He was able to get the internship, et cetera, et cetera. I was getting rejections. I was getting ghosted. So like as I was working IT support, those months were going by, I'm basically getting a new cert every month. But the reason I continued getting them was because my real world feedback was, hey, at this point, you're not good enough. So I felt like I didn't have a choice or an option, because it's like, I need to keep upskilling to beat the competition, to stand out, to earn these interviews, and then to be able to perform at the interviews to actually get the job offer. And then I guess the last piece of that whole just different scenarios is that, listen, the time is going to pass regardless. As
Yeah.
you're applying and waiting for callbacks and interviews, the time's going regardless. You might as well be doing something positive to
Yeah.
move your career forward. So that was my whole psychology. Get the IT support job, start making money, keep upskilling. I am applying, not really getting anywhere, but I am applying. But every month, more knowledge, more skills, more confidence, more certifications. The resume is improving. The LinkedIn social media account is growing, and eventually I broke through.
Yeah, no, I love that, and I'm going to touch on a couple more things on that before we move on to the next question. But I think the first thing I want to touch on is like everybody's path is different, and
Yeah.
just the same way like you were kind of looking at my path. Like I was also looking at some other people's path, and like dang, like he was able to get an internship right out of high school, or he
Yeah.
has all these certifications, like he has an ICP at 18? Like, I'm 18. Like, what am I doing with my life? And, it's like, the person that you might be comparing yourself against is comparing themselves to somebody else who's also comparing themselves to somebody else. And I think that I think it's so easy in this industry to like try to compare yourself to people because we have so many exceptional people in our industry, right? I think it's an industry of like a lot of exceptional people that are doing a lot of exceptional things. So it's like when you're among people who are extremely smart, extremely qualified, extremely like dedicated, extremely credentialed, and extremely like with a lot of accolades or whatever to their name, it's very easy to kind of be like, dang, like what am I doing with my life? And that's also like where like imposter syndrome sets in and all of that. But I think that over time you just gotta like realize that everybody's different, and when you come to the fundamentals of everybody's different, is everybody has different backgrounds, different experiences, different proximities that make their own journey different, right? Like for example, my background, like I have an immigrant background, so like some things are different for me. The way I think about certain things are different. The way I approach certain things are different, right? Some other people might have like backgrounds maybe like coming from impoverished like neighborhoods, but they were born here, so they have a different experience, different exposure. Like some kids were reading like C++ and TCP/IP textbooks when they were 13, so like of course you're gonna get a internship at NSA right out of high school. I didn't have that experience, right? Like
Right.
it's also very important to like be very conscious of like who you're dealing with and like where they're coming from. But another thing too at the same time is to also leverage your strengths, right? Because those people who are succeeding in these different things leverage their strengths, right? There's the kid who was reading TCP/IP and C++ at 14 leveraged their entry into this technology thing like very early to like build their skills and get to where they are. The kid who's like 16 and has all this free time after school and got the OSCP at 17 leveraged their strength, right? I leveraged my strength of like coming from a background that wasn't necessarily like rich, and I had to like do something to like help myself and my family. So that's my strength. You leveraged your own strength of like having someone you could look up to who could kind of guide you and also provide some sort of assistance, and also like your background of having this like discipline and all this like motivation from the Marine and all of those other things. Like we have our own individual strengths that are all backed up by our backgrounds, by our experiences. And the more you leverage and the more you spend time honing those strengths to build what you have, the better it is going to be for you than comparing yourself to other people. The other thing I wanted to touch on was consistency, right? You said the time will go by regardless, right? So you might as well spend that time on something, right? So it was like the consistency with like applying to jobs, like continually getting trained on different skills and certifications, right? I think in contrast to motivation, which can be like very wavering, consistency is key, right? I recently learned something called the no 0 day rule, basically where you might have days where you don't want to do anything, right? But that one push up or that 10 push ups you do for that day, even if it's not the 100 you said you were going to do, is a no 0 day. So as long as you're able to keep being consistent across the things you're doing and you're at least making progress, right? That's why you hear the term 1% better every day, right? It's like
Right.
those small things like add up and continuously add up to get you to where you are. And I think like those two things kind of tie in what we've both been having this back and forth about.
Last thing I'm gonna say before I guess we move on is when you said imposter syndrome, it immediately reminded me of back in December 2022. So guys, think about that, right? Like I started like A+ I got in like September, November plus, Network plus. I said November plus. November 2022 was Network plus, and then December 2022 was Security plus. So by the new year of 2023, I had my trifecta. At that point, I was still, I'm like 2.5, 3 months in working IT support. I scheduled a consultation with one of your mentors as well, Henri Davis, and it was like just light bulb epiphany moment for me because he threw me a just a template of questions. They were semi technical level 1 SOC analyst questions because I thought like I got the trifecta. I'm hot stuff now. Like where's my job, dude? I remember the one question vividly. I was just stumped. I had no idea about anything. He said, "You get an alert about an Amazon S3 bucket. How do you triage it?" I didn't even know what S3 was. I was just like, what did you just say? And then all the other questions, I'm just like, night, lights out. I'm going to sleep. Bye. I'm going to go cry. But no, the whole point was that like realizing, consulting and finding advice from the right people, that imposter syndrome, he revealed to me that, the learning wasn't over. And
Yeah,
that's when it really hit me. And I was like, oh, I'm smarter, but I'm not any more skilled. So the
yeah,
whole upskill approach and journey into whether it's, networking, whether it's cloud, whether it's cyber, it's part conceptual and then it's part technical hands-on.
yeah,
It doesn't matter the order. Everybody's journey is different, but you will have to cross that bridge where you cover both halves.
yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to have lots of lack. Like for me, when I got asked those questions and I was stumped. I didn't even know what S3 was. was. So yeah, that triggered because you said the whole imposter syndrome thing, and I was just like, oh man.
Yeah, no, definitely agree with you that on that. And Hunter is a great guy. Definitely check out his channel. I want to now segue into two things, right? And I think you have a sort of like nice balance between getting certified and also getting hands-on skill. I think we kind of share similar like thoughts and sort of philosophies on that. Because you're very well credentialed, but also very well hands-on trained.
Mhm.
So let's talk about certifications, right? I think that it's always a it's always a controversial topic in
Right, right.
cybersecurity industry, right? Especially when it comes to like entry level or whatever the case is. You have a unique approach to that, in terms like you obviously said like when you were getting started, right? You got the A plus in about 3 weeks. I mean, it took me 2 months, not gonna lie. I spent a month each on the core one and the core two, but 3 weeks, I mean, obviously you said you were probably studying like the whole day for that because you had all that
Yeah.
time to yourself. And you've obviously back to back. I remember like when I first saw you in the Discord, I was like, this guy's taking this certification today, and the next day you're like, I have another certification scheduled. Like, what the heck is going on? Let's talk about your unique approach to certifications. How do you approach certifications, and why do you approach it the way you do?
So I always say this on the topic of certifications that certifications will mean different things in terms of value. It will mean different things to different people at different points in one's career. For example, certifications heavily meant to me back when I was jobless and trying to get into IT or get paid or get hired. It heavily meant the visibility, the clout, the desirability, the market share desirability of the cert mattered so much to me initially because I was trying to find employment. I just happened to stack certs so fast that it's almost like, well, now I'm reaching to a point where it's like my resume is looking decently impressive just from a clout level, from a desirability level. And so now I need to be a little bit more, I need to start to, and then obviously I'm already working IT support. Now, what the certifications meant for me at that time was like, how do I transition and attract more cybersecurity interviews and get those skill sets? So after I had finished the trifecta, then I went and finished CYSA plus. Fun fact, I scheduled CYSA plus and AZ 900 on the same day. So yes, that's two certs in one day.
I
So
remember
now
that.
that's five certs at that point, right? It was at that point where I was self-reflecting. That was in February, March timeframe. Still self-reflecting on the consultation with
2023.
Henri. This was 2023.
Mhm.
Self-reflecting with the consultation from Henri. That's like, and even looking at your videos, because I'm pretty sure you passed blue team level one a little bit earlier than that. I remember watching your videos incessantly. Was just like team level one. I gotta get this blue team level one.
Yeah.
That's when, I looked at my cert stack and I'm like, I'm pretty conceptualed up. Like I'm looking pretty good at this point. Five certs in. I need to bite the bullet. I need to pay the money for blue team level one, and I need to start learning the hands-on skills. And by the way, guys, I was about 70% done it. I wasn't even done it completely, but because I had gone through enough of the material, especially like the phishing analysis, that when I actually received my interviews in June, in mid-June, I was able to speak so much more fluently and confidently because I would already training and doing hands-on stuff from blue team
Mhm.
level one. I didn't personally do all these home labs and projects. I know I should have, and the recommendations was always there, but I was so like cert heavy, and where I got a lot of my hands-on skills was starting from that blue team level one. So where I'm going with this is that remember, different certs will mean different things for different people at different times in their career. Now that I've already transitioned and I'm in cybersecurity, clout isn't so much of a thing anymore. I'm already
Mm.
working, I'm making decent money. Like it's not the point anymore. The point is now, where do I want to go? I want to be a higher level analyst, incident response lead, SOC analyst lead, and or become a security engineer, which this has taken me a long time to kind of piece together how the heck do I become a security engineer? And I've come to the conclusion now that security engineers are system administrators on cybersecurity steroids. That's what you are. Like if you don't have PowerShell skills like sysadmins would, by the way, senior sysadmins, not junior sysadmins. So of course I'm talking in the terms of like ideal and best practice. Like, can you be a more entry level security engineer? So with now where I want to go in my career, the choice and selection of my certs are so much more skills based. And again, at this point in my career, I have 15 certifications. It's like, what more visibility am I going for besides like CISSP and SANS GX certs? But yeah, so much of it is just genuine love, obsession, fun for getting smarter, getting better, and just I really do like on some deep dark psychology, competitive nature, just like Thanos with the Infinity Stones, and just getting better and better. Like every cert I pass, I'm smarter, I'm better, I'm more competent, and it does just, that's me and my sick brain, sick head, because not everybody enjoys studying this stuff. And this was discovered. I didn't know initially that. I just
Yeah.
loved studying so much. But it's kind of a good advantage for me too, because literally anything IT, network and cloud cyber, it's always ever changing and growing. So it's a best practice, right? Can you be more content? Can you be more comfortable? Not talking down on it, your choice. But for me and where my goals and my ambitions, I love and I am committing to continually growing. So your original question of my approach to it and why do I do it for me now? Why do I continue to do it? Is to be the best I can be, stay sharp, obviously working towards job hops, vertical jumps, et cetera, promotions, etc. So that is why I continue to do them and pursue them today. Fun, the growth, career progression, etc.
Hey, sorry to interrupt the video, but you know what's crazy? Over 70% of you watching right now are not subscribed. So please do me a favor, if you're liking this video so far, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button for the YouTube algorithm, and hit the bell notification to stay up to date on what's going on the channel. Also, leave a comment down below if you're feeling extra generous. Thanks for your support, and now back to the video.
Yeah, no, I love that, and I think a lot of times we don't realize that we have obsession for things still we actually get into cybersecurity. I didn't actually realize how obsessed I would be with learning and becoming better until I actually got into cybersecurity. I think that's one thing I was able to learn, that I can quickly get obsessed with things the moment I get deep into the weeds, because like I have this incessant thirst for knowledge and just getting better. And I think that getting into cybersecurity or any tech field for the right person will actually spark that obsession for learning and for building, because like a lot of cybersecurity folks are, folks who are autodidacts, right? You learn things by yourself. Like you have to go out there and search for knowledge. And I think that search for knowledge definitely awakens some level of obsession in some of us. And I think that obsession sometimes works to our advantage, and sometimes it doesn't, with like, getting burnt out or other things like that. But I do think like it has more positive outcomes than negative outcomes in the long run. So definitely like your approach on that. Now let's talk about the other side of like upskilling, which is training, right? I said you have a nice balance between like certifications and training, like whether it's like, doing labs and building your skills. We talk about like when you're a bodybuilder, or like you're working out, or like you're an athlete, you have a training routine, right? That you use to keep consistently overloading your muscles and, progressively increasing your ability to like get better, lift more weight, or whatever the case is. What is
Right.
your training routine when it comes to cybersecurity in regards to building your existing skills or getting new skills?
I love that you brought up the bodybuilding, the whole progressive overload hypertrophy training thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
because it in a lot of ways I embody it. I just did it subconsciously. I never thought of it like that. But
Yeah.
so me personally, and this is a crutch. I'm saying it as a crutch, not like to talk bad on myself, but I'm saying it like this is where my brain and my skill set is at. The going off on your own, doing your own projects is, and I think this is relatable to a lot of that you guys possibly listening. It's scary because it's like, okay, everybody's saying do a project. What project? Why? What? How? And
Yeah.
which one do I choose? And oh well, how do I set up this VM? And how do I get it to connect to this domain controller? And oh, I got NAT and I got freaking subnet mask. And what is this? What is this? What is? I can't connect to the internet. It is to a degree scary, like overwhelming. It's overwhelming and scary, right? So the approach that I've taken. Remember how you kind of said the whole 0 days, and we got to keep. We're gonna have to train even on days that we don't feel like it, because this is programmed, this is set.
Yeah.
We need to keep moving forward. It's discipline, right? It's not motivation here. So me being very self-aware, and I'm like, I know that about myself. I recognize about myself. I'm like, well, how do I continue to get better? And what do I get better on? Thank goodness today, even in recent previous years, we have so many subscription-based learning and training platforms. So I sound insane, but I'm subscribed to almost all of them. Not all of them, but almost, right? So I have TryHackMe, I have HackTheBox, I have Let's Defend, I have Cyber Defenders, Blue Yard, Cyber Range, and I did have the Blue Team Labs online for a period of time. But I'm not telling you guys to do what I'm doing. Like, am I optimizing and maximizing each and all of them? No, I'm subscribed to 4 at the same time. I'm okay with that, and I accept that, and I pay that price. But so with these learning platforms and training platforms, they have learning paths, which is excellent, because back to the analogy of the the progressive overload and hypertrophy, you always know where your last PR was. You guys don't know what PR is, and we mean like personal record. Sometimes we say PB, personal best. But so you know what you're capable of because you bench press XYZ weight for XYZ reps last week or the week
Mhm.
before that. Well, on these training platforms, I stopped off at this. I started this learning path, basically this training program. Oh, I'm going to commit to this training program for the next 90 days, 3 months, XYZ. Start this training, this learning path, and I've only gotten this far. What gets tracked gets completed. So kind of
Yeah.
like out of sight, out of mind. So these training platforms are freaking incredible because, like I said earlier in the recording, was that in this interview was that you don't in the beginning you don't know what you don't know. I don't know completely everything I should be freaking learning. I really don't. Like that comes with experience. Like it took me a long time to come to that conclusion that basically paying attention to my security engineers at my organization, how skilled he is and what he's capable of. I was like, you're just a souped up sysadmin with a lot of security privileges, right? But that's essentially what you are. But that came with experience and exposure.
Yeah.
So these training platforms and these learning paths, they did the curriculum for you, and now you just need to do the work. So it's no different than, it's almost like I'm hiring a personal trainer. You create the workout program for me, and I just get to work. As
Yeah.
I get to work, I get bigger, I get stronger, I get more fit. The analogy, right? I'm bouncing back and forth between cyber and fitness. I just keep doing these learning paths, and I'm getting smarter. I'm getting more capable. I have more skills. I have more awareness of what this vocabulary, what this term is. What is a SIM? What is a honeypot? What is a blah 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 blah? And I'm getting more skilled and confidence with different tools. Oh, I understand what Waza is, what Splunk is, what Elk Stack is, et cetera, et cetera. So that is really my and the great thing is, like, remember that thirst and that obsession to get better for us both. There's so many training platforms and there's so many learning paths, and they're almost all continuing to stay refreshed and come out with new content. So
Yeah.
all of these platforms, they have a learning aspect, the learning paths, and then they do have a basically live fire training aspect where there's these challenge rooms, there's these modules that are like, it's not teaching anymore. It's time for you to stress test yourself. It's time for you to,
Yeah.
here's your situation, go to work, figure it out.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, that's kind of the more back the box style. That's the more Blue Team Labs Online. That's kind of the more cyber defenders style. Let's Defend, Try Hack Me. They have their learning paths typically first, and then you can kind of, as you get more confidence, you gain more competence. You can
Yeah.
be a little bit more, take the training wheels off and just go out on your own. But that is my strategy and philosophy with, like, how I'm continuing to progressively get better between the certs and the training subscription platforms.
Yeah, I like that because I think, I like a balance between those labs and also having a personal home lab because I had that experience. But I do think that it's important to, if we try to, like, kind of go off, let's say, like, from the training perspective, right? If you, look at, let's say, an athlete, like a real world athlete who got trained at home with their little, like, basketball, like, stand in front of the garage where their dad trained them and, all these things, comparing that to a athlete who, learned from a coach at the YMCA or like from a specialized coaching school, right? Both of them could actually technically not all the time, but some of them, like if you're exceptional enough and you get trained by a great, person, like if your dad is a great athlete, you could be as good as that guy who got a coach, from
Mhm.
the YMCA, right? The only difference is just that you might have had like limited resources or had to like struggle for certain things because you had to learn in a half court size or like quarter court size thing in front of your garage, right? But ultimately, because you had like discipline and you were practicing all the time, you could go, man to man on with another guy who got trained with all the more expensive facilities and all the cool and trendy things, right? So what I'm trying to point to here is that the fact that you trained with a home lab versus you trained in Try Hack Me doesn't make one better than the other. I think it's
Right.
ultimately when we come to the level playing field, which is the court, is like, are you able to apply those skills competently in a real world scenario, right? Because
And you get
ultimately,
the freaking job done. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
like you, whether you train on TryHack Me or Cyber Defenders or in your home lab, are you able to bring those skills into the real world and get the job done, right? I think that ultimately, if people start to realize that as long as you're training, as long as you're putting your skills on, and as long as you're fitting those trainings towards what you need to get your job done and get better as an analyst or engineer, that's what works for you, right? So, like, for example, if you're an analyst or an engineer, you need to like build your Splunk skills, and let's say you start from TryHack Me or you start from Cyber Defenders or Blue Team Labs Online, you learn some basics there. Like, you know what? I think it's time for me to take the training wheels off, but I want to practice practice in my own court, right? I want to build my own VM so I can put in my own custom data and create my own custom alerts. And you do that in your home lab, that's totally fine. The fact that you started from this guided path to a more like independent sort of like learning or training approach doesn't make you less better than someone who has been working in their home lab since they started in cybersecurity. Ultimately, like I said, it's like, are you able to bring those skills to the real world into your job? Or if you're interviewing, are you able to speak on those skills competently for what the interviewer is asking you for if they're trying to hire you for a cybersecurity focused roles that require those skills that you're learning, whether in your home lab or in a guided path from Track Me or whatever platform it might be.
I freaking agree all the way. Yeah.
Yeah, and one thing that you touched upon earlier on was resume, like optimizing your resume, writing a resume. If you guys don't know, David is one of our community managers in Cyberwox Academy. By the way, if you're not in Cyberwox Academy, yesterday was the perfect time to join. Right now is a better time to join because it's going to be linked in the description. We're about over 3,700 members in the Discord right now. We're going really fast, like crazy. But David is one of our resident resume experts at Cyberwox Academy amongst his other duties as a community manager. And I really like how you give really quality advice on resumes, right? I look at when people like show their resumes and you're like, do this, do that. And I'm like, dang, he just wrote a whole epistle on like every single thing you can do to like optimize their resume. But I think you have a really good eye or a really good approach for how one can optimize their resume with quality stuff, right? Because it's easy to be like, dump all these things and all those things in your resume, all this fluff. But I think when you give people advice on resumes, you give them quality stuff and like, you have this experience, but it's translating more towards like IT when you're looking for cybersecurity jobs, or you have cybersecurity experience, but you're not quantifying that properly. So what is your approach to resumes and how does it affect how you review those resumes? Whether you're doing it for someone you saw on LinkedIn or in the Discord.
So first thing I want to touch is like how I gained all my knowledge and my whole perspective on the resume writing. It came from deep research of so many different parties, of reading and watching interviews from hiring managers, watching interviews and advice from recruiters, reading and listening into interview resume advice from people who actually broke into the industry successfully. Like these are different people on different sides of the table, in different spots of the whole job search process, right? So I listened to so many different people's perspectives, and I do just want to tell you guys that nothing is like 100% stuck in, set in stone.
Yeah.
These are like more like best practices at this period in time. Like a lot of this stuff is changing, and I always need to be staying, keeping my ear close to the ground, and even continuing to apply for myself, because I need to also make sure that my advice really still does work today. Because what worked in 2020 versus what worked in 2015 versus what's working in 2023 versus 2024 today, it's not the freaking same. Unfortunate. So resumes, right? The whole psychology and purpose of the resume is to get a freaking callback for an interview. Get the interview. If the resume is getting you interviews, it's a great resume. Don't listen to anybody else. Could it be better? I mean, we can't 100% objectively prove yes or no. If I did this one swap, does that make the next recruiter read that one little edit and now want to call me back? I can't 100% prove that. So this is why what I mean, where it's like, it's just really best practices. And did you test it and try it? And is it working? So for example, this is a common piece of advice that I still say today is keep it limited from 1 to 2 pages. And the reason for that is because I studied the recruiters and the hiring managers who read your resume from their perspective. They are reading and going through hundreds, if not thousands of resumes. They gloss the crap out of your resume. They don't read every single page. So the reason I've come to that piece of advice is to keep the 1 to 2 pages is to be number one, succinct, easy to read, not too much fluff where they're just gonna like gloss through 1, 2 pages. They didn't see anything important, anything marketable. They just toss it and moving on to the next. So keeping it limited to 1 to 2 pages forces you only put the highest priority, highest impact things. By the way, when I say highest priority, highest impact, to who? To the company, to that position, to the hiring manager, right? So there's so much reverse psychology and empathy within this resume writing, because you really have to stop thinking of things from your shoes and put yourself into their shoes. What are they looking for? What do they care about? Them. It's not you. So that's a good example of how I always kind of recommend 1 to 2 pages. I can't prove that. So you're saying, David, if I make a 1-page resume versus, if it's 3 or 4 pages, I'm not going to get callbacks with the 3 or 4? I can't prove that. I truly cannot prove that. But from learning, researching, studying recruiters and hiring managers who are the people who receive your resumes and actually look at it, they don't really enjoy reading, and they don't read long resumes. And if, again, it forces you to the most important things there first, so that they see it first and get the the callback, you get the email, you get the response, and you get the interview. Another thing about my approach is I was a personal trainer before, like an actual NASM certified personal trainer. And I still, kind of recreationally train people here and there, whatnot. But why I bring that up is because there's so much of a statement of empathy that like I really do care about person I'm trying to help. So much of this stuff is like person to person prescriptions, person to person diagnosis. Can't give too much broad, like I can give some broad basic guidelines, but it's so much better when you actually, subscribe to Cyberwox and we actually do a one-on-one because like, for example, a lot of you guys are kind of guilty of this. You make one resume and you try to blast it out to so many different job applications. And for any of you guys who are already, coached and helped with your resume, you know for sure the first thing I ask you, what titles are you trying to achieve? Like I need to learn that from you. Otherwise, my advice means nothing. It's no different than if I was personal training and I'm like, so what's your goals? What do you want to
Yeah.
look like? Are you trying to gain weight? You trying to lose weight? What are we trying to rehab? You can't walk, you just replace your knee. What's going on here? Right. So it's so empathetic and I really have to get to kind of know the person. What was your background? Where are you trying to get to? And Day kind of said it before how there's a big teaching aspect of because I'm in cybersecurity, I realize and I have a better calibrated eye and ear for what's important and what's relevant and what's relatable. A lot of you guys kind of have a lack of self-confidence or just general awareness of what's relevant. So I ask you a lot about, your previous experience, jobs you've done, things you've done, because I can better extract things that are important to the hiring manager and the recruiter. For example, let's just say you're a nurse. Well, nurses are like if you're new to the industry, and I know this because I was new too. So like I know the struggles. It's like I was a nurse. What the heck is relevant from me to IT or cyber? Like where's the relationship? It's not there. And I'm here to tell you you're wrong. There is a lot of crossover and a lot of things that matter. Your attention to detail, being on time, working under high stress, pressure environments. Yeah, that's very relevant. That's very relatable. So things of that nature, how you almost need somebody more experienced than you. You almost need the coach because you can't see it for yourself and we can. So that's another big approach of mine that I ask the questions, what are you trying to do, what have you done, and just really get to know what their kind of work experience is and help them better write and substantiate what was really impactful, what did you do, how did you do it, and what was the business impact, and
Yeah.
get in as many metrics, things of that nature as possible. So yeah, we could talk about resumes all day.
Yeah. No, no, no. I love how you broke it down, and I love that you specify it's not a one size fits all approach, right? You're not like, well, all resumes should have this and that and that and that, like, or like, this is like the template you should follow. It's not. Well, of course, there's a template, but there's flexibility and variability in the template depending on the person with their background and what they're trying to get to, right? Like you said, like a personal trainer, if your goals might be different, you might be trying to like gain weight, you might be trying to like get toned, you might be trying to like lose weight, you might be trying to get muscle, might be trying to have like an aesthetic, kind of look. So it's like, what is your goal, right? And of course, in addition to your goal, it's like everyone's like body's different. Like, so your body type would also determine like, what kind of training you do. Let's say you already have like very, very obvious and accentuated shoulders, then maybe you might not have to focus on your shoulders as much. It might just be building out your traps or like your delts or whatever the case is. Like everybody's different. And I think based off of everybody's difference determines like how you approach that resume because not everyone that is looking to apply for a cybersecurity analyst job, has a network admin background or IT support background or a cybersecurity intern background, right? So it's all different, and that's why I said I love the way you approach it because it's like it's not a do this, do that. It starts from, well, what are you trying to achieve, right? What is your background? What skills do you have? I see that in your resume. You've done this and this. Like, talk more about that. How can we translate that from where you're coming from as a nurse or an IT person or a network person into what makes sense and what actually translate into a cybersecurity role or expectations of someone who's going to be working in cybersecurity. I mean, that's why honestly, like, I wanted to touch on that because it's a very great way to look at things. And like you said, it's like I think you've done a lot of research and, yourself, myself, a couple other folks as well have our ears to the ground, in regards to like, what are the expectations like of what should be in a resume or of what hiring managers are looking for, skills wise, like personality wise, experience wise, right? And we kind of bring those knowledge and those experiences into how how we help people, with their resumes or like just general career advice. So I really love that about, your approach to resumes. And I want to ask one more thing, which is kind of like a lot more skills focused, right? I think over the last, couple of months or the past year, I would say you've had a very strong focus on Splunk, right? So you've, definitely been working on different Splunk trainings. You've gotten like all these different Splunk certifications as well. It's actually very impressive, I must say. I'm actually trying to knock out my Splunk power user end of this month, because my core user is going to expire soon, and I don't want it to expire, and I just want to do the power user to renew that.
Mhm.
But I want to ask you, like, why did you choose Splunk to focus on? And the reason why I'm asking is because, like, a lot of people, like myself, right, when I first started, I definitely dabbled a bit with Splunk. I was working with Splunk, in my internship. I built a whole home lab around Splunk. So I definitely spent a fair share of my time with Splunk. Obviously not enough because I had to relearn it very recently. But you've obviously spent a lot of your time, working in Splunk, building your skills and all of that stuff. And I constantly see you advising people on like different Splunk things in the server. Why did you choose Splunk as like this skill that you're trying to like really hone into the way you have? And what are you trying to get out of that, given your current position and your current experience in cybersecurity?
So why I initially chose it was a pure research and then reverse engineer process. I looked at a
Mm,
whole bunch of job descriptions, and a whole bunch of companies were like preferred Splunk, right? And then you can do some research of like Gartner and all these different statistic that show that Splunk is still like the leading market share SIM. Pretty
yeah.
sure that's correct. I had it here somewhere. But so like there's like Logarithm, there's IBM Q Radar, there's Splunk, there's Microsoft Sentinel. That's like some of the top, right? Do you have to learn them all? No, just getting good at even one. All of the other ones make sense, right? But Splunk was really that reverse engineer. I looked at so many different job descriptions. They kept posting them. By the way, you had a slight influence on me getting Splunk because I saw you had the core user, and I was like, he's employed. He did the core user, so I'm going to get it too. So it was a whole conglomerate of just different research data points that it's like this is a good bet. And it's just funny how, oh, here's the research, here's the stats, and then it's like when I got employed IT support, I was IT support, but my security sister team, we had Splunk. Now I'm in cyber. Bank has the Splunk. Holy crap. It's like I'm seeing the constant real world feedback that Splunk is still a market leader. It's very desired. Splunk engineer roles, titles, jobs, they are plentiful. They pay very well. Splunk is looking like a winner, man. Splunk is looking good. So
Yeah.
that was a big, just like, I feel like I did basic research, but it was just very evident that this is a big tool, big player. Everybody knows of its name. It's almost like synonymous with Cisco. Funny, hilarious that Cisco bought out Splunk now, right?
Yeah.
But so it's just that almost monopoly on the psychology aspect. It's like Splunk has almost like that psychological monopoly of SIEM,
Yeah.
right? So when you hear of SIM, almost everybody thinks of Splunk first. So they did very good on their branding, and lots of companies use them. It's not the only SIM out there, like don't get me wrong, but I guess an additional thing why Splunk works very well for almost any newcomers, the training and the learning path, like the path of the certs, they're very well laid out.
Yeah.
There's been growing, but there's a lot of more third-party resources by now. By the way, I've used all third-party resources for all of my Splunk training. I have 4 certs right now. The highest tier are the enterprise admin and the enterprise security admin, right? So I use all third-party training. Why do I mention that? Because a lot of internal first-party trainings are either like gate kept from enterprise licenses, for example,
Mhm.
like CrowdStrike University, Tenable, or they're incredibly expensive. Splunk,
Yeah.
native training. Not to talk bad on you guys, but man, is that stuff expensive.
Yeah.
So first, now, like juxtapose that to, let's say I want to get good at IBM Q Radar. Where's the resources? Yeah, have
Mm,
fun. I'm sorry, but there's just at this current point in time, the resources just aren't as plentiful, which also coincides with the research we did before that. Hey, Splunk is a market leader here, hence why there's so much more. It's kind of like the iPhone, how they have so much more third-party accessories because it's a market
yeah.
leader. Versus if you
Yeah.
get some obscure Android and they might not have as many different designs for the cases and things of that nature.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I think it's very good thinking. I mean, like you said, a lot of times Splunk is synonymous to SIM, right? Even matter of fact, like if you just Google SIM, you're probably gonna see a Splunk page pull up or whatever the case is. I think, like you said, it's a very good bet because it's a market leader. The training for Splunk is a lot more accessible. I think that's one of the biggest things that helps because the barrier to entry for Splunk training is very low, right? Like it's
mhm,
as low as a free subscription to try hack me. It's as low as a download of the Splunk, platform from
also the sock. Yeah,
yeah, but so the
yeah.
SOC, yeah, it's very low. It's like you can find Splunk videos all over the YouTube or all over the internet. You can find Splunk logs, like the barrier to entry is very low. And I think that they've also been in the market like very long as well. So it's definitely giving them that brand recognition. So that's, I definitely agree with you that it's a very great bet. And obviously, like a lot of other sims, kind of take some playbooks out of Splunk, like not actual like literal security playbooks, but like some of the features and abilities of Splunk. They try to just be a better Splunk, essentially,
Mhm.
because obviously Splunk is super expensive, like training wise, but also the platform itself is expensive. So
The tool itself, yeah,
yeah, the tool itself, it's extremely expensive, but you can't go wrong with having that Splunk knowledge. And I realize also that once you have a good understanding of one sim or like one tools, like in that category, it's easier to pick up other ones because you kind of understand like the general concept of like the architecture, login,
right.
pipelines, like tools, apps, like integrations, all those things. So
Normalization, parsing.
all,
Yep.
all of that.
Good
So
example is like ELK,
yeah, yeah,
Elasticsearch,
yeah,
Kibana, and Logstash. That
yeah,
matches
yeah,
up exactly to Splunk architecture of universal forwarder, search head, indexer.
yep,
So
yeah.
yeah, once you learn one, it's very easy to see the analogies and the similarities to learn others.
Yep, absolutely. But we've had a very great conversation. Glad that we finally got to do this. And I always like to ask all of my guests before we leave, what's next for you? Like, if I were to interview David in the next year or next 2 years, what should I expect?
From a personal career perspective, of course, some type of vertical growth, some type of vertical jump, whether that is over to the security. I love the blue team side. The most red teaming I'll do is some hybrid of purple, but like I love it over here. Not saying I won't ever do it, but I'm quite content and having lots of fun growing, getting better here. I'm not in a rush to try or to jump ship or anything like that. So either some type of security engineer or like a senior incident response lead, SOC analyst lead, things of that nature. So that's like just career wise, that's the next step. More personal career wise, man, we got lots of work to do with the Cyberwox Academy and the Discord. And after I graduate WGU shortly, in about 1-2 months left, I want to get serious with content creation myself. Again, look up to you a lot for that, between YouTube and also creating more training, and I'll possibly do more podcast interviews, episodes with different people as well. And yeah, man, I'm 28 too. I gotta get a house soon. You and me be talking about that too. So
Yeah,
lots of things to look forward to. I think in the next 2 years, I should be financially fit enough and everything is in place to like be a dada, man. Like 28 and I would
nice.
be like 29 and a half, 30 by then. Lots of things to look forward to, man. Lots of things to look forward to. I'm just this IT cyber stuff changed my freaking life, dude. Like I'm just
Yeah.
so grateful. And like I have something to just put my head down and just tunnel vision focus to. It kind of feels like bodybuilding all over again, where I could just
Mm,
I love it and I could just freaking close out all the noise. No more of that grass is greener. No more of that shiny object syndrome stuff is really like
yeah.
affecting me. It's like, okay, that's cool. You're doing that. Okay. I mean, good for you, but I don't care. I'm here. So
Yeah.
that's yeah, that's where I'm at, man. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, man.
So many more
That's
certs,
amazing.
so many more technical stuff.
Yeah.
Just so much more technical stuff. Oh my god.
Yeah. That's amazing, man. Like I definitely love the continued growth and like the continuous like search and thirst for knowledge for growth, both career wise and personally. And I'm sure like this is not going to be the last conversation we have. Definitely going to be more opportunities for more conversations. Matter of fact, I think we're actually currently planning a live stream with a bunch of other folks who have transitioned from help desk IT support to cybersecurity. So we should have that going live probably next month, which will be maybe before this episode comes out. But that being said, thank you so much for your time, man. I really appreciate this conversation. It's been great. Definitely looking forward to more of your growth. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching the video, and see you in the next video.
Hey, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Cyber Stories podcast. We really appreciate your support. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to like and subscribe for future episodes, and comment down below the one thing you learned from this podcast. Also, don't forget to check out the video description for various resources to kickstart or advance your cybersecurity career. You can also choose to binge on our previous episodes by clicking on this playlist on your screen. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.